Welcome to the Pan-African Friday morning in Kampala. We are coming to you from UBC in Nile Avenue in the Kampala city. We have been listening to President Ramaphosa. Of course, he was the team leader for the African Peace Initiative, the peace group that traveled with 4 presidents to Ukraine and Russia to meet the 2 presidents in regard to the ongoing conflict in that part of the world. And you could hear him summarizing what their initiative meant and what the achievements that they definitely scored. Of course, he's saying the success of that visit in the 2 cities and meeting the 2 presidents will depend on the outcomes, the outcome that will definitely be manifested from that feast. For now, one may say it was successful, it was not successful, it's not the issue, but of course later on in our discussion we'll be looking at that, whether this part of the initiative was successful or it wasn't successful, and what would the implications on the future of Africa in similar peace initiatives in the world. Of course, a lot will be said whether it was necessary, whether it was necessary, whether Africa has already worked on its own problems in the backyard, or it was also necessary to be out there, if for no other reason, but also making that statement. In the studio, I'll be joined with the usual panelists in looking at the issues that affect Africa today, and we'll be discussing a lot, both local but also other issues with continental dimensions on this African continent. My name is James Mututa, and I'll be joined in the studio with the other panelists. I'll be introducing to them as and when the time comes. But today we're definitely looking at a number of issues. The biggest one will be to do with this particular visit of the African leaders who were in these 2 cities of St. Petersburg and also Kyiv to meet with the 2 presidents. Of course, the team had 4 presidents, but also had a number of envoys that had been were sent by their presidents. For example, in Uganda, we had Ndugu Rugunda, the former Prime Minister of the Republic of Uganda, who represented the Uganda in this particular group of the African leaders who are looking for peace in this part of the world. In the studio today, I'm joined by my sister, the only woman in the house, Rachel Takali. I'm also joined by Ndugu Irumba, and I'm also joined by Ndugu Rukarama, the Pan-Africanist. And as usual, we normally begin our discussion of the week with what has prevailed, what the issues that have really caught people's attentions and the interest in the African continent. And to do that, I will begin with Rachel to tell us what she has seen on the African continent of interest, to share with our viewers who are following us on different platforms and from different parts of the world. And at one point, we'll also give you a number on which you will be able to communicate with us via WhatsApp, so that we can share your views. I have also already some views of people who shared with us last week. And remember, last week we were not here because we had a broadcast which interrupted our program, but definitely we are sorry for members who tuned in that time, because there was that interruption which was beyond our reach. But today we are back here, and we shall be looking at some of those issues that you had raised with us, and which were recorded with us from the studio here. And we'll also be having more that will come. If we have time, we shall definitely discuss them. So today, Rachel, I think we'll look at a number of issues. both that have happened locally, I mean in Uganda, but also across the globe. So I'll begin with you to share with us what you think is of really an issue of importance to the African continent and African audience.
I think speaking in developments on the local scene that had regional or continental implications. And not so long ago, of course, we had that President Museveni was not well. And of course, had that taken a certain twist, we'd be having a different conversation today. But it's a good thing that as we talk, he says he's clear and free concerning that very ailment, which is COVID-19, and he has resumed his duties as we talk. But while we were still considering that, of course, there was the terrible development in Western Uganda, and that is when the ADF struck and claimed the lives of scores of people in that area. But of course, ADF has not just regional implications, but also continental sort of waves. These people have been at it, maybe not continually, maybe not to the same degree, but for about 25 years. So when we talk about African mediation efforts, we're hoping to see such a footprint registered in this particular situation. That was tragic, and we really condole with those who lost their loved ones. Further afield, of course, I know it's the focus of this discussion, is the African effort to actually stretch their mediation capacity to other parts of the world. That's a welcome development, and we're hoping that there will be results. But nearer home, there are some interesting developments also. You know that the medical interns have long been raising their voices concerning the fact that they were yet to be deployed a year after they should have done so, and the government was insistent that there was no money to cover such a program. But as of last evening, one of the state ministers in the Ministry of Health says the government has released money and they will be deployed without delay. But I think even on a lighter note, Uganda Revenue Authority is on record saying their officers going forward will be wearing body cameras. And this is in an attempt to actually stop in-house dealings that are detrimental to enlarging the revenue base of this country. The president is on record saying there is a lot of revenue that is going south on account of corruption-related dealings within Uganda Revenue Authority. So I'm thinking that they have reasoned that if these officers have these cameras on their bodies, such transactions will be recorded in real time and they will be apprehended and so on and so forth. I think that is a very interesting way of going about business, but that's where we are. Yeah,
you know, the two issues that you have raised, which will be of interest, I think even other members will contribute to it. The first thing is the one of cameras, and I've seen many people, including police in Australia and the US, mandatory, and I think UK, to put on cameras, but this has not even stopped them from...
I'm wondering, these dealings, you know, these underhand, are they really
done in public?
In office?
Are you going to have your camera even off?
No, they only say when they're in office.
Exactly.
So will these dealings be undertaken in offices?
No. Okay. Never in office. And then the other thing is that the issue of medical interns. I think, I don't know why even the government is crippling with this. You know, you are looking at this program of medical interns from the time Uganda got independence up to today. But I'm sure universities are now churning, and the colleges are churning out a lot of this personnel.
But remember, they didn't have the allowances they have now, which are sizable as we talk. So I think that is really where the sticking point is.
Yeah.
They say, look, we have now upped your allowances significantly, and your numbers have swelled.
Exactly.
So I think when we talk about broadening the revenue base, it becomes all the more urgent for the revenue to increase. So really, maybe the cameras are in order after all.
The other thing of the president, of course, has been a lot of talk whether about the president. One person even sent in a question last time saying that, well, if there is only one active COVID case in East Africa, and that, of course, referring to President Museveni, that was the only active.
But is that accurate?
Reported. I don't think so. It was that it was the only reported active case, but also this person was asking a question, and I think the good thing we have here, Council Nduguru Garama will help us understand this better. He was asking a question. That why was it that when the president fell sick, that is his words, delegated power to Nabanja and not the vice president? But of course he was not right. The President Museveni didn't delegate power to Nabanja. President Museveni assigned Nabanja for a function.
But Lupo was aware at the time.
Yeah, but the function which was in Luwero, and that was Heroes Day. So he did actually mention that the Prime Minister will be representing him at that function. But that didn't mean that he gave powers, his presidency to Prime Minister Right Honorable Nabanja. But why I was saying so, I think because that same discussion appeared somewhere in the discussions of Parliament, and I think it is good that there was saying that Nduguru Garama will help us to understand some of that. The Constitution of Uganda is very clear on that. When the president fails to perform his duties, this time the president did fail to perform his duties anyway, but in the absence of the president, I think it's Article 109 or something like that, where it is clear that the vice president comes in. And if the vice president is not there, then the speaker comes in. That is at that level. But people also need to understand there are three things in the presidency. There is the order of presidency. The order of presidency is such that the president is the principal in that order of presidency. And this normally observed during public functions. When we have a public function, the president comes number one. There is the vice president, then the speaker comes number three. Then there is the order of succession. Now, in the order of succession, the vice president is the principal in the system in the presidential system, because it is assumed that in the absence of the president, then the vice president succeeds, because the president doesn't succeed. It is the vice president that can succeed, and that order then we have the speaker, and also the Chief Justice in that order. But there is also the order of delegation. The president can delegate, and the order of delegation is that the president delegates a senior person in the cabinet or in the government, because there are some people who can be delegated by the president even when they are not in the cabinet. Like now it happened when Nduguru Gunda, former prime minister, was delegated to go to Ukraine. He's not in cabinet, but he is part of government. And the president can therefore delegate any person as long as that person is part of the government, sometimes even outside of government. But if that person merits that he can represent the president and also represent the government outside. But I saw a lot of people making noise that how can the president leave Honorable Nabanja in office? The truth was that the president didn't leave Nabanja in office, but delegated Right Honorable Nabanja to represent him, and that is a constitutional assignment. You cannot fault the president on that. But I think Nduguru Gunda, Rugarama, as you come in, you can pick it from there, then you add on your week.
Good morning, dear comrades. Maybe to start from there. Correctly, you've made very correct observations. I think, not just thinking, because if it were that the president was incapacitated to the extent that he cannot perform the duties of the presidency, that would be a different ball game. Or if he had died, that would be, again, a very different thing. And I think that's what the Constitution talks about when it comes to... But this time around, he was not in position to interact freely with the population on account of having been diagnosed with the now what has been disturbing us, COVID-19.
Or is it 23? COVID-23?
Well, we haven't gotten the COVID-23 thing, or even 21, but the 19 is what the medical people are telling us. And on account of that, I think, and he has been consistent, I think, even during campaigns, that was the idea of let's distance ourselves. You remember even in Chogam, long after people had abandoned the masks and what have you, he still had his mask on, and on several occasions. So his practice is that is one of the few remaining adherents to the SOPs. So on that account, I think, and again, he has the legal mandate to delegate. He simply delegated duties to the next, probably, a high-ranking officer in government, because the vice president was... well, probably now would be asking ourselves, but the vice president was also... The vice president was not in the country. So it should be understood from that perspective. And I want to believe that during that period when Nabanja was delegated the duties, she performed anyway. So, and of course, you see, in a politically charged society like ours, where we all want to say something, it is not lost on me that we can talk from end to end. But I don't think really there was something that should have worried anybody.
Sure.
Having said that, probably when because I had something to pick from there, who announced the president's sickness? That is also another thing, because it seemed he announced it himself. I don't know if that was the correct way of doing it, but you people who are in protocol, I don't know what you say, but I thought that somebody, maybe a government spokesperson or his medical team, head of his medical team, or the minister for presidency or something like that, should have come out to and I think it is in the same light when we had the incident of the unfortunate incident in Mpondwe, and somebody whom some sections of the society, I saw Honorable Minister Wariomonse guiding us yesterday on NBS that no, what the First Lady and Minister of Education and Sports was talking about was strictly in line with her docket. I think so, because she restricted herself to exactly what happened at the school, and the concern really was about the students. The other thing, of course, is before I leave that, because that was something also that disturbed me in this particular week, that we had people, not that I really rate them highly, because ADF for quite a number of years has been meting out atrocities to innocent wananchi. I may not easily point to a time when they have had a conversion or confrontation with the UPDF whereby we can easily say their target is actually to engage the army and overthrow the government. But the urban terrorism, the hit and run that some of these rebel outfits adopt is to weaken, first of all, the resilience and the belief of the Wananchi in their leadership. Because when such a thing happens, certainly the parents and us, who are not necessarily the biological parents of the children that were killed, there is a tendency to quickly lose that respect in our security forces on account of they could have done better. But sometimes, of course, when they fail or fail so many attempts and sometimes even nip the attacks in the bud, they don't come out to the media to tell us that this is what they have done. But I want to believe, especially some of us who interest ourselves in some of these things, you get the information that the UPDF has done much more than what you actually see in the media. But bad news travels so fast. Now, I want to also commend in that regard the spokesperson of UPDF and I think Minister of Defense, General Kuraije, who said that this time around, we must admit that it is like a goalkeeper, you know. It happens. There is nothing like, however good a goalkeeper may be, you will have to concede a goal. So it happens, and he admitted it. It was on television. We are not just putting words in his mouth. That this time around, something really went out of our way, and we had that unfortunate incident. Then also, I'm aware of the June 10th. June 10th is something I just want to comment on, just briefly, really. It is perceived, you know, people who have come up to either rape history or project history in a manner that may not necessarily be correct. We have had history all over the world being written wrongly, deliberately, and sometimes also for a purpose. And this one is a time, because even the American embassy here was closed. I saw the ambassador tweeting about the closure of the embassy, and world over. And they were recognizing, and my friends in America were telling me that, you see, now we are remembering the total abolition of slave holding in America, that this is the time when there were final pronouncement over the people who were having slaves, that it was no longer something tenable. We could not keep the slaves in the position in which prior we used to have. Of course, that is creates a very serious...
They just exhausted their stock, Andy.
It creates a very serious talking point, and of course we are not going to go into it now.
Sure.
But to imagine that slave ownership in America ended is rather an absurd assessment of the situation that is happening in America. We know way beyond that than just to be cocooned somewhere and described, because we would in that case be described as gullible to admit that there is nothing like slave holding in or keeping slaves, because when the systems themselves encourage that high level of discrimination, people kept in certain situations whereby they are no better than the slaves in the real sense of the word, then we would be having our analysis rather not correct. And finally, maybe just Trump's troubles are increasing.
You seem sympathetic.
Well, you see, like the Africans
it is not. I think these guys had a common code. When you look at Trump and his cousin, Prime Minister former Prime Minister of UK.
Boris.
Yeah, Boris.
Yes.
And Trump.
Then please also sympathize with Biden and his son.
Yes. Oh yeah. But you see, of course, no. On that account, of course, I do sympathize. Because Biden's health is also not good. That's for a fact. But we are trying to.
But he's trying to come back. You are aware?
You know, they try. He's coming back. They are calling it keeping up appearances.
If it were an African, would have been a dictator.
Yes.
Absolutely, and they would. You see, you don't own your narrative. This is what my senior brother, Dr. Brian Kagoro, keeps talking about. As long as you are not in charge of your narrative, and somebody must tell your story, then anything you do, however good it may be, will be described and by the person owning your story in a way he or she wants it to be described. But yeah. Just talking about our senior brother Trump, if you see the indictments now, they are increasing, and yet he is the front runner for his party.
At the same time, it is his party which is controlling the House.
It's very interesting. I even don't know. But anyway, like I said, let's see how the future treats Trump. Because I was also listening to Schwarzenegger saying that Trump is the worst president that has ever happened to America. I don't know how far true that one is. But whatever happens, I hope, I actually, his final description, which I would want to end with, is that America, between Trump and Biden, is not voting for a president, but voting against. Whoever will be participating in this exercise will be voting against this or that.
So there are two.
Bad or worse.
What a paradox. Ndugu Irumba will be coming in shortly. Now, Ndugu Rugarama, you also raised a number of issues, especially the issue of ADF. Of course, that is unfortunate. Definitely, no one knew, no one saw it coming, but it happened. And as a country, I think we really condole with the families that lost their children in that attack. But also, I think the media in Africa also needs to be sensitive on some of these issues. When you hear, I think we discussed something about that when we had the attack in Somalia. The numbers that were coming in, you hear 200 people have been killed, 300 people have been killed, 100 people have been killed. But later on, I think in the president's message, he was talking about 50 or so people that we lost in that attack. Now, what we also need to know is that the terrorist propaganda is to do with numbers. They have to show that so many people have been affected, so many people have been killed, so that to cause that which you mentioned, the hatred of the population and the leadership, so that people begin doubting or hating their own government. And for that, they will also generate publicity for the terrorists. So I think sometimes it's also good to go with the official figures, because if I have lost a child in an attack like that one, whether you tell me there were 100 who were killed or what, because these are not just numbers, there are lives behind those numbers. And for me, a person, a relative, a family that has lost that person, those numbers don't matter. but it's the person that have lost that matter. So I think it's also important to look on how we handle some of these numbers, not necessarily to follow in the trap of carrying further publicity for the attackers.
Remember that ADF has not come out to claim responsibility.
Exactly.
Or any other, for instance, rebel outfit. But because the UPDF and the leadership in our country is aware of the past conduct,
yeah,
they have assessed and they are attributing this atrocity to yet again the evil handwork
exactly,
of ADF.
Yeah, because of their past. Ndugu Irumba, karibu.
Thank you very much, comrade, and thank you very much, my discussants here. First, let me begin with, you asked us to mention a few things that we think of great concern or great importance in the African continent. Number one is that last week you saw, actually I think there were 6 African countries, Congo, Brazzaville, Egypt, Senegal, Uganda, Zambia, and South Africa. They took a trek to Russia, Ukraine.
Before you come, that's what we're going to discuss in length. We wanted to pick any other that you may have picked along the week.
Okay, okay. Let me begin with now the ADF in Kasese.
Yeah, but if there's nothing, then you can still go straight to our discussion.
No,
anyway.
I would like to say something about Kasese, and this also links it to our efforts in Ukraine. That you have a rebel outfit for the last more than, I think,
At least 25
years, wreaking havoc on your neighbor, actually infiltrating into your own, killing people, and then you say, I am going to export peace in Ukraine. First, you need to understand, Ukraine war is a proxy war by America under NATO. So for you to even dream that you're going to export peace, you must take care of America's interest. Remember, and that's why I like Trump. Trump, by the way, you people hate Trump, I don't know. Trump is very truthful in his leadership. He tells you, I don't like this, I like this. Biden and Obama, they have just, these are just pretenders like the America that we know for all the years, for all the centuries that America pretends for who they are not. They call themselves peace keepers here, peace promoters, yet actually they are the opposite. They are the ones who cause peace. After, then they project themselves, they present themselves as peace keepers. So these, you must take care of America's interest in Ukraine war. So can African leaders, Uganda, Congo, Brazzaville, Zambia, Senegal, really sit down and take care of America's interests? Can they?
Maybe
so before you dream of creating, exporting peace, do you have it? If you have it, does the person you dream about giving that peace, do you understand his interest in Ukraine? Can Africa exchange America's interest in Ukraine with their peace? The answer is no. So what are you doing there? You're simply masqueraders. You're masquerading.
So you are saying that...
And I was very glad. Do you know what Zelensky said? Zelensky said, you guys have a lot of problems in Africa. Some of you are crying of a lack of resources and so on, but the resources you have used to come here, can't you utilize them in your own Africa in solving your problems? That is very risky that they had gone to help. And Russia was just laughing.
So, are you saying...
So, now, I am linking it to Congo. Just see what happened in Kasese recently. These guys went to Congo that because ADF came here on Buganda Road. You remember? Buganda Road, the opposite police. And hell went loose. So they said, We are pursuing them here at home and we go for them in Congo. Now they have left them in Congo, they are here in Uganda. And by the way, I am saying this for the first time. You people, we should stop making conclusions on who is killing people or these rebel activities. You attributing these activities to ADF before the leadership of ADF actually confirmed that it is true, it is us. Be careful. I have a very, very different story about what happened at Uganda Road, that bomb explosion. Although they are trying to attach it to ADF rebel.
KPC, the CPS.
Uganda Road, yes, CPS.
CPS.
Yes, that's Uganda Road. Let me finish my point. Yes, and Parliament. I have a different scenario, and from an inside source.
In ADF?
Yes, that explosion. What happened there?
Huh?
Actually, it could be that it is not ADF.
Are you going on record on
Yes, put me on record. There is.
that?
But what would they say?
That you talked to the commandant of ADF
Let
and
me
said,
tell you. Let me tell you. I've been speaking to a special assistant to the president. She's
Of
called
where?
Val.
the president
Yeah.
of ADF? The
No,
president of
no.
Uganda?
The president, special assistant to the president in terms of youth. She's called Val. This lady is in exile. She ran in exile. Do you know what happened? I will not do that. I will not say what happened. She's in exile. She ran to exile. This is a special presidential assistant in terms of youth. She's in exile. I spoke to her for 2 hours. What I have, and you people trying to tell the world that this is ADF here that bombed the parliament and Uganda Road. It's a completely different story. So I would
First,
like
we are
to
taking
urge-
official
I would
account.
like to urge
So,
especially
I
the
mean-
journalists, these journalists in Uganda, stop attributing some of these atrocities very fast to anybody.
No.
Let ADF come and claim that you are the ones, then you take it.
But okay, we are looking at the situation where, like you rightly put so, that ADF and Guru Garama talked about it, that ADF has not come out to say they
Claim
they
responsibility.
That's the
claim
point.
responsibility.
That's the point.
But do they always do that?
But also, they have not come out to deny responsibility. So
You may not have the platform to do so.
then you also don't have a platform to do so.
No. Someone can act on your behalf, and they put it. Don't you know propaganda in the first casualty in any war is the truth.
So let the
So-
truth.
so-
then let
Auntie,
let
Now, have you ever got the right context of what happened in Ruel 37 years later?
yeah, but there are versions.
have-
You can look at options.
What you
There is-
are listening to is one side, the story of the victor. Have you ever heard the story of the what is the opposite of the victor?
Yeah, but there are also
Of the
options.
loser.
There
So you may never have the platform.
until recently, when
You may never have the platform.
when your friend, now you mentioned your friend Trump said no, they started this campaign of alternative facts. Now, if you don't have the real facts, then you will have the alternative facts. That will feel, and you know, like they say, nature doesn't allow a virtue. If you are not going to have the facts for that period, then those facts will stick. So until ADF comes out to say, no, we are not the ones responsible for this attack, someone is saying they are responsible, like Nduguru Garama said, because there is a history to that. But of course, we are not going to discuss this much a lot, because other people who are following us from other parts of the continent may not understand the details that we are sharing today. But I think we will have time, some time, and we discuss these things. So,
Maybe just to mention that Comrade Rumba is a journalist. So he was talking from that perspective,
Sure,
as
yes.
a journalist. He may be privy to certain information that in his investigative journalism, which we have not labored so much
There's
for
fun.
us who are in different spheres, other different spheres to dig into. But what is for a fact is that there is such a rebel outfit called ADF. And that people like the rebel commander Mukura is in incarceration. And that there are other rebel collaborators and maybe participants who have been arrested in or outside Congo, where they have had their bases for a very long time. And that we have in the past lost people like in Chichwamba Technical College
Yeah.
and other areas. And that time, they at least admitted that they were the ones. But there are some, of course, far-reaching statements that he has made. Like, for instance, the bomb explosions
At Parliament
and CPS. I cannot claim to have
We
that
should be
information, but him as a journalist, if he has it, I believe he will collaborate with our forces,
Yeah.
and he will help us such that we avoid
Actually,
that.
So that the
Let
truth,
me tell you, comrade. The person I interviewed, you remember this is a presidential assistant. She has been denied to see the president for the last 2 years, and the security zeroed on her, and she was intimidated, and she had to run away. There are many stories. Val, if you remember the story of this Chikankani, this noob youth, you remember them? That were taken to State House, blah, blah. You know that? She's the person who actually collected them, took them for orientation. Some security forces came and hijacked the project, and then beat the hell out of them. 2 of them died out of that torture, and then finally they were presented as good people to the president.
Yeah,
so there is a lot going on that we, the Ugandans, if we decided to simply consume what the other people, the narrative they are selling to us, it is dangerous. So the
And that
thing
is
you get
why-
to understand as a journalist, I actually want to tell people that we should not be quick to attach even this Kasese recent attack to rebels. Let them first climb. Let us hear the other side of the story.
now the date will tell us the story. Because why this information, when it is brought, be it from the journalists or be it from the public or even within security itself, it is subjected to further investigations, so that these issues of claims and counterclaims are sorted out. And that's why, like she was saying, we prefer dealing with the official.
Yeah, we can talk,
Forum.
we can only play around with the official communication.
Yes, because then a lot has been done in terms of sieving this information. Because I know even sometimes newsrooms also get wrong information.
But I
And
think
we
that-
talked
Yeah,
about.
but
But I
we
think
pride
when
in
it comes-
investigative
when-
journalism,
but
because if we get that side of the story, which
not only
Irumba
that.
and those who are like him can give us,
But
it's
not only that
important.
also.
I
Yes,
want you to
yes,
remember
yes,
that what you
Rachel.
call official communication is also managed information for a purpose.
Even newsroom.
Even CNN
even-
has got managed
even
information.
newsroom.
BBC,
So
all
let
these
me
major
tell you-
Yeah,
media
which
outlets-
is okay.
So the point I'm making is that even that official communication from the official source, for me as a journalist, I actually also sieve it. I also go down and counter investigate.
So yours is not just the story. Your interest as an investigative journalist is the story behind the story.
Exactly.
Yes.
And I
But-
think also in relation to what he's saying, I think this whole discussion can actually tie into what we are talking about, these global efforts that they are talking about. For sure, there is no one who, no political actor, let us put it that way, especially in high circles, who says or does anything that is not in self-interest. And when that comes to the fore, oh, okay, if it's elevated, it will be maybe in his nation's interest. So your nation's interest might not be mine, or your religious interest might not be mine. So as a result, there is always a competition of interests. So the truth in many of these cases is accidental. If in the propagation of my interests, the truth agrees, so be it. If the truth does not agree, for sure it will be sacrificed. That is how nations are run. I'm not saying it is right, but that is how nations are run. That is how states do their business. And that is how we have, and we said, I think the last time we were here, we talked about this fact. The fact that, and he repeated it, whoever controls the narrative, that person has interests, and their interests have to take precedence.
Sure.
And so what happens is, even if you were the one who got the short end of the stick, and I am the one reading the news, chances are that I may twist those facts to agree with my agenda. So at the end of the day, Ndugu Irumba was talking here, and he said, why would these African leaders think that by traveling across so many miles, the other people would actually be interested in what they have to say? I said even before those people took off that it is a waste of time as we talk. Because Zelensky is on record, even after they departed, even when they were there. He does not want this peace they're talking about. He wants to end this competition he has with Russia. Mr. Putin is also on record that at this time is not open. China has tried, other people have tried, but for him he's in a contest with America and her cousins. So Zelensky,
and her cousins.
Yes, Europe are her cousins. So that competition has to reach its logical end.
Somehow.
For them, they are saying they have to reach a certain point. They're not looking at victory. They're looking at a place where Russia has taken enough pain that they say, okay, let us reach something. Russia is similarly pursuing such a place, whereas Zelensky has said this pain is enough, let us do something with this.
And also
until
Russia-
that day arrives, no peace can be entertained by
And also
either
Russia
party.
wants to demystify the America's cowboy kind of
But America is in a similar competition to show that, look, you've been marketing all these weapons all this time, your weapons are not that good. So there is this contest, our naive
Supremacy war.
leaders.
So-
in fact, even before you come in,
supremacy war.
I was most discouraged when I found out that the instigator of this so-called African peace initiative is a Frenchman who heads the Brazzaville something.
Group.
I think he sits there in Congo Brazzaville. Can you imagine? This man is a businessman. How could our leaders be sucked into this man's nonsense? This man is the one who did the legwork for all these weeks. He has a special connection with the Russian deputy foreign minister in charge of Africa, who now reports to the foreign minister of Russia, who's, I forget his name, whoever that man is.
It's okay.
that-
Go ahead.
Which man takes the information to the Kremlin and by extension Putin? How could our leaders debase themselves to that level
Actually, the word you are going to say, how could they be so dumb?
and allow this man to actually take over the platforms that should be occupied by the good people of Africa, to make a mockery of their leadership?
but yes.
What is
okay.
this? It was never going to succeed. But this man, he projected now he's a big man on the global stage. This so-called French man, he's a businessman there in Congo. Who took our African leaders? You need to shape up.
Sometimes we have...
Could that be the reason why the president, Uganda's president, sent somebody else and he dodged it to go?
I am of the opinion
The president
he
was-
knows.
Is it not
And he could not be part of these things.
COVID way.
Because really,
Yeah, he had
That's
COVID.
what is official.
So what?
there was no
But
chance
for
at
me, I also
all.
see the official information.
But that's
For
what
me,
So
Now,
what I'm trying to find
out
out is why would these people
COVID.
who are wearing the mantle of leadership, because they do not go there as clan leaders, they do not go there as heads of their houses, how dare they abuse the resources of the people of Africa in the name of this debacle called Peace Initiative that is going nowhere in particular? How dare they?
But Ndugu Mututa, just a minute here. I can see where my sister is coming from.
I hope you do.
And sometimes,
going.
and sometimes where she's going I may not tell, but where she's coming from. You see, Africa, in majority of the cases and the recent history especially, has had less of the originality that it is very difficult to say this is Africa's original position where it is not influenced.
Exactly.
And that disturbs a number of people. But let me state like this, that in a majority of these negotiations, there will always be people who are doing the inside work. There will always be the Andrew Mwendas of this world who are going to cut deals to make sure that a President Kagame meets with a President Museveni, even after so many years of not talking.
The informal.
There will always be those informal underground
Rwanda the other day,
works.
they allowed their people
In
finally.
the same way, you will find that Frenchman in Congo Brazzaville who now sees that his trade is greatly affected by the blockade on the Black Sea, and he will influence and engineer that probably if 6 leaders can meet, and who knows, by the way, who knows? Let me tell you that out of the, were they 9 points which the African leaders, about, yes, 10, out of what the African leaders went with for that peace negotiation, like for instance, making sure that the vessels on the Black Sea carrying a number of products to Africa are allowed. And some of the producers, of course, that I have got a big debate there, that the wheat and what have you.
Big debate about wheat. Anyway,
Yes.
Viewer, when we come back, we are going for a break shortly, and when we come back, we are going to continue with this debate to find out whether the African leaders' mission to the Ukraine and Russia was successful. Was it necessary? Was it even
whether it made
necessary
sense?
that it made anything to the people of Africa, but also the rest of the world? So please don't go away. We'll be back shortly.
Street bebanzibye saabo kankubulire natikka ebintu byange okuva China ne bangamba netagatini namba nze nga sijine netuma omuntu omulala alindeetere kati ngenze mu URA bangambye ebintu byange ebiri mu manya gange era si byange mbusayina tini namba zaganabya tini namba sibitegeera Nfudde obusete newola mwewole yetini namba byebiki bannange sente zange
tax identification number oba giyite namba musuubuzi gyewandiisa biwala asasulira emisolo
kati ebyo nze njifuna ntya bambikola ntya
ebintu babigonza olina ndagamuntu
njirina
ogenda bugenzi ku website ya URA
www.ura.go.ug awo n'olondako e-services then n'ogenda ku tin registration awo n'oteramu n'ennamba yo n'omwaka gwe wazaalibwamu amannya go gajja kweleeta automatically awo n'ojjuzaamu n'ebirala bitono nnyo ebyetaagisibwa ng'ennamba y'essimu yo email address yo ne gy'obeera era nga bino osobola obbisanga emabega wandagamuntu yo then n'osubmitinga nga kamesagi kajja direct ku simu yo dakiika ntono nnyo
nga sina bannange bintu bikolera ddala bannaye obugayaavu kibi omanyi nti obugayaavu bukuza bannange weebale Dangote bannange omponyeza omanyi ebintu byange bingi byowonyeza okubbibwa nzizeyo mu URA mbalage nti njirina
okubeera ne tini namba kikuyamba mu bintu bingi nnyo okugeza mu kusuubula n'okusuubuza eby'emiguzi mu Uganda ne wabweru wa Uganda okuddizibwa ensimbi okuva ku misolo gy'ozosasula okufuna looni mu banka ez'enjawulo okufuna layisinsi okuva mu government agencies zonna okuwandiisa emmotoka yo n'okugula oba okutunda ettaka.
URA tukulaakulanyize wamu Uganda. These days, our homes are no longer just the places we live. It's where we attend meetings, go to class, keep each other safe, and entertain ourselves. To do this smoothly, you need a reliable internet connection. Buy the MTN WakaNet router, which connects up to 32 devices and gets a free 40 GB data bundle at only 149,000 shillings. Or buy the MTN WakaNet MiFi at only 75,000 shillings and enjoy a free 15 GB bundle to stream, study, work, and play on the go. Visit any MTN service center to buy the MTN WakaNet router or MiFi and enjoy the internet that does amazing things.
Juko.
Yo.
Check the shopping, man. What's your secret?
Haven't you heard of the parish development model PDM?
Yes, I did, but I thought it was just a talk.
No, Sebatia. It is real. I and a few friends together formed a circle, accessed money from the PDM, invested in a portrait project, and now things are moving.
Juko. I thought I was one of your friends.
You are.
But you left me behind.
I didn't leave you in poverty. What you do, just visit your LC2 chairperson and your parish chief and start the process of economic transformation. Just like that. The parish development model is an initiative from the government of Uganda through the Ministry of Local Government designed to transform all lives of Ugandans for the better. PDM, my parish, my development, my life.
Yeah, welcome back from that short break, and we're back to Pan-African Friday, a program that comes your way all the way from UBC here, Nile Avenue in Kampala, and we are talking about issues that concern Africans, issues of Africa and beyond Africa, that with African dimension. Today we are looking at the peace initiative that was arranged by the number of countries in Africa. Of course, there has been also that debate of why is it some few countries in Africa, why not all the countries of Africa, why not the African Union? But that's a debate for another day. So we are saying, was this visit to Kyiv and St. Petersburg in Russia necessary? Were any, but at the beginning you heard the President Ramaphosa saying the success of this peace initiative will be looked at the end tail, when whether the negotiations will be allowed to continue, or whether the two presidents will allow more discussion. But when you look at both the president of Russia and the president of Ukraine, you realize there isn't much in terms of commonality. One is saying this, another. Actually, I think at one point the president of Russia interrupted when the presentation was being made by the African leader. Saying, no, I think some of these things that you are talking about, according to what I read, were misguided. And he said,
I was completing my goal before we went into a break, my submission here. And I want to state that the African leaders went with points upon which they wanted the two leaders to understand that the Africans were interested in having this peace, not for the sake of it, but because of the following reasons. And some of them, I will just point out a few, was that if they can agree to ease transportation on the Black Sea. As a consequence to the blockade, there has been increased prices in fuel. And these increased prices in fuel have ultimately increased the prices of other related commodities domestically on the African continent. And if I understood Putin well in his remarks, and by the way, even Zelensky, they appeared to agree that it was, they will do everything humanly possible to ensure that the transport on the Black Sea, the vessels which are already on the Black Sea, and especially the ones destined to Africa, they are going to have a special attention to them. And I think that, to me, any other thing, holding any other thing constant, if they can agree on that and they achieve some minimum, make some minimum gains on that, it will be something that will be attributed as an achievement on part of the African delegation team. Now, that is one. Two, there was the issue of wheat and other related stuff and fertilizers. Of course, the Pan-African debate would extend and say we can make our own fertilizers and better if we put our hearts to it. I agree. And when you look at the bread and other related stuff around there, I think it is countries like Egypt and North Africa,
and South Africa,
yeah, interestingly, which are into that. But honestly speaking, we shouldn't actually be talking about bread and its associated cereals, because Africa, comprising well over 65% of the arable land in her continent and the fresh waters and the levels of fertility, we shouldn't be going there. But this is where we are now. Probably a rabid Pan-African, my brother here, Irumba, probably given the microphone, will tell you, let them even increase the what? The process of tightening, such that we can go back to our original discover. We'll discover ourselves and we'll do things our own way. I have had very credible, important people on the African continent say so. And probably I would also agree, but not at the expense that people can die. Because I have heard that some people have been dying as a consequence of the war, of the war in Ukraine now and Russia. Now, but of course, at the end of the day, we are not so naive. And I think this is why I was saying that because we had this debate, a similar debate, although we didn't go deep. And I remember my sister Takari saying that it is hogwash for, she didn't use those words exactly. I'm just, to say,
I don't also remember that.
To say, no, I have corrected that. To say that Africa, yes, Africa, for instance, can really mediate this conflict. Two things there. One, even what we call an underdog appearing in terms of football, appearing in a certain tournament, they will say, so and so appeared, they participated. You can be defeated, all right, but the fact that you have qualified to appear there, to participate is very, very, very important. Now,
so you're going there for purposes of
just a minute. Just a minute. If not for any other reason, at least for the reason that Africa, this time around, people are not bringing peace to us.
We are taking
peace negotiations to us. However, in whatever respect you want to describe the efforts we are making over there, we are the ones who are now doing it. We are saying, you, our former big brothers, what you are doing is wrong. Can you now rally around this and come to peace?
Even with our problems in the backyard.
Yeah, exactly. That is one. There's nobody. There is nobody without problems. Just a minute. There will always be people who initiate things.
Yeah, you see, at the end of it,
and if the African leaders didn't find the initiation of that French person in Brazzaville,
With
worthy
his own agenda.
Yes, if they didn't find it worthy, they would not have participated. But we also must not forget the fact that we shouldn't really reduce our innovation and our agenda to some other, as if Africa is incapable of organically developing something and also pushing it forward. Because we know for a fact that South Africa, for instance, now who told Senegal, who told Uganda to vote on the issue of Russia, Ukraine in the UN the way they voted, and South Africa? Is it the Frenchman?
We don't know.
Again? Is it the Frenchman again
No.
in Brazzaville? Then two, so we must also give some measure of respect to ourselves. Then, of course, with all the challenges, not with, because we know our challenges anyway. Two, in that same aspect, we are aware that Africa has had, especially South Africa, has had working relationship with Russia.
You could even see the meeting.
You see, the BRICS. Now, the BRICS didn't start yesterday. Certainly, it didn't start when Ukraine was having issues with Russia. Meaning, therefore, that working relationship, we can also accuse South Africa of bringing Zambia, Senegal,
Comoros.
Yes, all these other countries that accompanied her. We can accuse Uganda, we can accuse her of bringing these other African countries on board to do her bidding, the other side. Because remember, she had been accused by America directly that she was participating in exporting arms to, ridiculous if you asked me. But finally, on that, I want to mention that the geopolitics, globally speaking, America in the past, up to recently, has been doing everything humanly possible to keep Russia and China apart. Now, that has not worked. It has not worked, and this time around, the Ukraine conflict has even brought China and Russia much closer. And that is speaking volumes to the tilt of balance.
Yeah, but when you look at, in fact, I sympathize with these African leaders when they were in Moscow.
On an impossible task.
Exactly, because I looked at through the 10 points that they raised. One of them was the exchange of prisoners of war, both from Ukraine and Russia. There's also the issue of children who the Ukrainian people claim were removed from Ukraine and taken to Russia and separated with their parents. There was also the issue of sovereignty, and that all the borders, the countries must be, the sovereignty of the countries must be respected. And there was also the issue of now de-escalation. And when you look,
conflict.
Yes, and when you look at all these, at least more than 5 points that the African leaders were raising had been echoed by Zelensky during the meeting.
But are we aware that there are two major rebel camps within Ukraine?
Yes, they had
which are actually taking over 48% of the territory of Ukraine.
Actually, most of the east of Ukraine now, where
is not controlled by Kiev.
Yes, it was already.
But they say they are Russian armed.
Yeah, it is also
they will
possible
always
that
be those claims.
They were related to Russia. Actually, most of them are Russians without even
they're
claiming.
Russians, ethnically.
Yeah, most of them were Russians who have grown up in this area and they had wanted to. Maybe they were
be part of the
maybe
motherland.
they were helped. That one is a discussion.
Like it was in Crimea.
But when you look at this, then you could see, and I was not surprised when President of Russia could not wait until they had exhausted all these points. At one point he said he looked at it and like they had been talked to tell him this. So when you look at these African leaders, they may not have been made a lot of impact, but at least like the president of South Africa was saying, they are the only group that at least has been able to do what they did. You know, when you read the book, was it which book's this, when the lizard fell from that tree?
Yes.
And it looked right.
Nobody was praising. If nobody is praising me,
things fall apart.
The head, I said, I will praise
Like
myself.
Exactly. So if no one was praising them and no one is going to praise them anyway, they should be able to praise themselves having done that, whether they succeeded in that or not, but at least they're on record as having done that. And yet, like you said, even with the problems back at home, the one of Senegal should have left fire burning in the streets. The one of Egypt, I think, has a lot of money. He didn't go, but in prison. The one of Congo, you know what is happening there. So
we shall all have, in this world, we shall all have, in one way or another, something affecting you internally,
exactly.
But it will not stop you from
helping.
Yes,
but I think
America itself, how is it faring domestically?
Yeah.
They have all sorts of problems.
But I think
but only like you come in our and which we also shared last week, we are saying, where is AU in this?
I think that brings me to where I wanted to go.
Exactly.
The issue, we should not confuse issues. And Ndugu Rugarama said something about this. We are not contesting the capacity of Africans or African leaders to mediate peace. That is not even the focus of our argument. We are not even saying they should not have the opportunity to do so. We are not even saying it is a wrong thing to do. What we are saying is what Ndugu Irumba said earlier. How can you expect to export peace when you have none? As far as I know, I can't claim to be an expert in the mediation processes and so on. But I think to prevail upon either party in a given contest, you have to have moral authority. That is my view.
Determined by who?
Us, because now we're Africans talking about Africans.
Determined
by us.
Yes.
We're not talking about, this is not a white man's perspective. This is mine, and I'm an African woman. Mine says the moral authority, when you have conflicts in your own backyard, stubborn ones, that you have never really
bothered,
maybe not even bothered, but you have never really committed yourself, heart, body, and soul to make sure they see their logical end. I don't see where you get the moral authority to start peace. Many thousands of. That is why you are saying that Mr. Putin maybe was not as polite as some of these hypocritical Western brothers. He did not want to sit there and waste everyone's time. So he had to interject and politely let them know that he had heard, but these things were not going anywhere. He was going to leave them in that room, because what he didn't say was that you're not in a position to tell me anything, without saying that one.
He just wanted to be polite.
I think, yes, of course he was being polite. But our Western hypocritical brothers are even more polite. For them, they can sit there quietly the whole time and leave everything there. Brother Mututa, in 2020, the chairperson of the AU was Mr. Ramaphosa. In 21, he was succeeded by Ndugu Tshisekedi. In 22, it became Macky Sall. And now we have the Comoros leader. I'm not even going to go into 1960. I'm not even going to go into 1980, what was happening. I'm now going to 20, just 2020 here. In 2019, there were at least 15 military conflicts on this continent. At that time, even if it's only a year that the person can assume the presidency or chairmanship of AU, I did not hear Mr. Ramaphosa applying himself body and soul to see that there is meaningful progress on those fronts. Some of them are low intensity. Others are higher intensity. When we talk about high intensity, we're talking about things like DRC, where people are killed 1,000 at a time. There are others where the degree of damage is not as intense. But it's a conflict nevertheless.
Even supplement what recently between Uganda and Rwanda border closure.
Okay.
Rwanda and Uganda border closure.
I did not hear anybody coming out forcefully.
There was nothing. Nothing. It took the son of the president to initiate talks with Kagame. And the border, but the African leaders,
yes,
the East African leaders, all of them were quiet.
I have argued. No, even before you come in.
My colleagues know that is not correct.
Exactly.
You remember there was participation of a brother from, was it Angola?
There was something
Angola.
in SADC, I think also.
Exactly. Yeah. There was a brother who came and mediated.
No, that conflict, that
there
aside,
were efforts.
Let me complete my argument, please.
By our brother here, the president of Kenya.
Of Kenya,
you
yeah.
remember?
Exactly.
There were efforts from
There were efforts,
Tanzania even. You see? So really...
You're not reading me correctly. I said applying themselves heart, body and soul.
Exactly.
I did not say in passing.
The skin in the fight, you mean?
Yes. Applying themselves
and you
fully,
see, Comrade
completely.
Mugarama, in one of his arguments, Comrade Mugarama said that even if you know that you're not going to actually make an impact, but just appear.
And I will repeat that. I repeat it. You see, because you
just for me, happy with appearing. For me, I'm not happy with appearing.
So this was just about posturing.
Thank you for being happy with posturing.
Not necessarily that, by the way. Appearance, this particular appearance, like a football club, and I gave an example.
It is okay.
When a football club appears, it would have gone through a certain selection process.
No, it is okay. Ndugu Mututa, let him be happy with posturing. I am not contesting his place. May he allow me to also present mine.
Yes,
okay.
please.
Mine says this posturing business does not serve us. We are saying when you're in a position to influence some of these things, that is just one, and that is not even a military conflict, the one of the border closure. I'm saying if you're in a place, apply yourself fully, completely, immerse yourself. We have not seen this immersing. And I'm not talking about Ramaphosa only. I'm saying in 20, I have not heard him as a person, as a presidency, pushing forcefully for some of these things to reach an end. Then he left. Tshisekedi came in. We are talking now 21. I did not hear Tshisekedi against forcefully, except in his own backyard. Even that one did not reach the end of a peaceful resolution. That one also went. Mr. Macky Sall came. I have not heard, okay, let us not talk about the rest of Africa, just West Africa. There is conflict in Burkina Faso. We're talking about the Islamists. There is Mali, there is Niger, there is Nigeria. All of them have these issues. I have not heard Macky Sall, or during his AU chairmanship, applying himself fully to that conflict, because it is in his region. We are now not talking about DRC. That one also went.
So you guys are saying?
What we are saying is, this version, and it is not a sin to take your message to Moscow, would you please be seen to be infinitely more active nearer yourself? That is really what we are saying. That is why Zelensky, he cannot listen to you that much. Not because you are incapable. He also knows you're capable. But what is your track record?
Yeah, because what you are saying, which people are seem to be agreeing with Rugarama when he says, at least make an appearance.
No, we're not agreeing. I'm not agreeing.
Sometimes even the appearance can change things. You know, when children in the home are making noise and the father walks in, without saying something, they will keep quiet.
Let me ask you, before you leave that point, let me ask you, if this appearance is good enough, these conflicts that, now this one of 25 years, this one of ADF, why don't they reach a conclusion? Do we have to wait 25 years? Now this Ukraine, maybe it will also be 25 years. It is possible.
Even more. Yeah, but the two are not the same when you look at the ADF operations and what is happening in Ukraine.
And we are saying, these very capable leaders of ours, why don't they apply this very capability to our own situations? Is really the question. Not because they shouldn't be there. We are saying that energy, also bring it here.
She said body and soul.
It is true that we still have many, not only few actually, issues on the continent when it comes to conflict, where West Africa is having issues, North Africa is having issues, East Africa now with this we're having issues now. But so would one just sit and wait?
No, we are saying in this particular case, there was clearly a collective thinking. That is why there were 6 countries represented in this arrangement. But we are saying that that unity of mind, that collection of resources, that shared history needs to be applied consistently, powerfully, meaningfully to our own situation.
Yeah, because it could also help us when African leaders will now sit down and say, for example, Macky Sall, with his problems back at home, say, you can't be talking of other people's peace when you don't have peace at home.
Let me put it another way. When was the last time 6 countries went in a certain situation, maybe in Senegal? When was the last time?
No, but we have had a number of initiatives on the continent to handle these issues.
Absolutely.
Give me one example.
Yoruba Doumbouya, for instance,
when he took over.
The efforts that ECOWAS has made? Do you know the statement that African Union has made, including banning him from participating in the GUN?
Yeah.
Do you know GUN Jammeh and what he was doing and what ECOWAS and African Union
so
told
you
him?
have not answered me.
So
when was the last time 6 presidents went to one location in Africa? I'm not talking about IGAD.
In Doumbouya's case, there were even more than 6.
Yes,
each of them would go, and all of them went in a group, and they told him what they told him.
Exactly. So what we need to agree.
How long ago was that one?
No, immediately he took
after
over.
he took over.
Yes.
We have been having these efforts. What we need to agree here is that yes, there are still issues on the African continent, and maybe the commitment on the African continent has not been so much. We can also agree that this going to, when you are in a position, to be in a position of sorting out a conflict, you also need to have, like one put it, the moral authority to be able to do so. And it should be also the issue in public service, something they call rewards and sanctions. You should be able to have the capacity to provide rewards or sanctions in the case like they did to Doumbouya when he finally was suspended. But you know, in a discussion where you are going to sit, talk and beg to be listened to and finally wait if you are going to be talked to again, can be tricky. But indeed, I think African leaders have the capacity to be able to handle conflicts within the continent. The problem has been the defragmentation.
The collective willpower.
Yes.
It hasn't been shown.
That is true. I can agree with you on that. But then, let alone the issue of now going to Russia and Ukraine, and I also will agree with the thinking that maybe if we had put together the same team to go and meet the people fighting in Sudan, or we have had the same capacity in Libya, or we have had the same capacity that
in Kinshasa,
push in, it would have made more sense that this African peace initiative or peace group shouldn't be seen only at this time because we are not able to get food from Russia, but rather that it should be a permanent thing to solve issues beginning with ours at home. Then we will be able to be heard when we go outside of the home. Ndugu Rugaram.
What I agree with Ndugu Mututa and my comrades Irumba and Takari is the fact that what we are faced with in Ukraine-Russia war is actually a situation which is well and beyond the Ukraine, for instance. I know that for a fact. And I don't think that our audience are naive to believe, for instance, that the participation of African leaders in mediating peace between the Russia and Ukraine is going to provide the magic bullet. I do not think so. I think we are clever enough to know that what we are experiencing, the conflict between Ukraine and Russia, is at a level where certain powers, especially America, is exporting her superiority complex like she has done before elsewhere. Only that this time around she's meeting rather a hard nut. We have an equally superpower, nuclear armed, and which is definitely not going to allow any of the activities she claims to be of threatening her interests in and around that region being perpetuated in Ukraine. That is why we are getting a problem. But what I know, and this I would want to share with the audience, is that however small the participation towards bringing peace may be, and this peace may not be achieved wholesale and immediately, that effort must be applauded. For instance, when you look at the 10 points that African leaders went with, if in the interests of Africa, for instance, we can achieve like 3, if for instance we can have the ease on the ease of the movement of the vessels on the Black Sea, fantastic. That would be would go a long way in easing the skyrocketing prices of commodities on the African continent. If we can have the prices of cereals that come from Ukraine and Russia, and of course I don't want to talk like a businessman, but I'm just trying to look at these issues from the layman's point of view. Because from the Pan-African point of view, I would tell you that let Russia and Ukraine keep fighting and we don't get any wheat, say that we can grow our own wheat. You know, the radical Pan-Africanism, I would say that. I would tell you that it is not important. In order for us to make sure that we exploit our own natural resources, including mining and drilling our own oil, let them even blockade the entire Black Sea. We don't want any oil. Then vehicles can stop, other movements requiring fuel can stop. Then we make that we now start diverting and getting oil from Nigeria, which is an African country, and these other countries that are producing oil. Or even on the African continent, we have a number of them, and Uganda is coming anytime soon. I can have that radical approach. But you see, I'm trying to be I'm trying to come back. I'm trying to come back to the level of our wananchi. How can we sort out the immediate problem of somebody in South Africa, somebody in Egypt, who have not been Pan-African enough and they rely 70% on the cereals from Russia and Ukraine? Now, certainly, Ukraine cannot claim to be such a developed economy that they can tear off Africa. No, I don't think so. Zelensky and Ukraine have got their own unique problems. That's very true. And for purposes of this debate, I will tell you that since this is not their war to start with, because certainly America is fighting her war using Ukraine territories. At the same time, the other NATO members, in the spirit of fighting along with their sister or cousin, as we want to call them, America, they will want to put up a force to make sure that anything to do with Russia and China are challenged as much as humanly possible, even if that challenge includes making sure that people within Ukraine are starved to death and a majority of them get out of the population, of the territory of Ukraine, which they have done. So in short, therefore, against the background that we know who is fighting in Ukraine and their interests, but looking at the efforts of the African leaders, who I want to believe are not naive, they also know who exactly is fighting and what their interests are. In view of the 10 points that they went with, should we achieve a minimum of 3, it will be an achievement.
Good enough.
Actually, we're looking only at 1. If they can leave the Syria to move, but
with all due respect, even that one was already done by non-Africans.
Apparently.
Yes, but because remember the peak of the crisis, it is UN and these other agencies that actually prevailed upon these 2 actors to actually make way for things coming this way. Okay, Macky Sall went as the AU at some point, but even that was already solved among them, because these white folks, aside from their present altercations, have commonalities. That is why Russia has never bombed any Ukrainian wheat field. They have never bombed their fields that yield the oil.
Oil, yeah.
The corn oil. So there, they have left, it is just that there are certain exports that, by the way, from Russia, they go, pipelines go through Russia, Ukraine.
Those ones were built by Russia during that time.
Can't they bomb them?
No, they can't.
So
it's not in their interest.
That's what I'm saying. Even in their wars, the white man have things in common,
yes,
which we don't do.
There are some do's and don'ts.
For you, when you're at war, I quietly go on with my business, not knowing that when you're not at peace, I can't be at peace.
Exactly.
The white men understand this. And that's why, in their global politics, they have gone further than us.
I agree with you on that. But also at the same time, even this issue of wheat may also be tricky, because I don't see Russia sitting there to, in fact, the president said it himself, said, who says that the grain of Ukraine is the one feeding the world?
Absolutely.
That's not even true.
You can be the 4th largest producer, all right, but we can have device alternatives, and we do it our own way, and we succeed.
Exactly.
That is true. But you see, now we are in a situation, and for me, my point really, at the end of the day, is that I'm not drumming up this business of saying that we have done a magnificent thing, African leaders are now ultimately going to bring peace between Ukraine and Russia. I know better than that. Honestly, I do. But you see, at the end of the day, for us to sit here on the national broadcaster and attempt to demean the efforts from the African leaders, however minimal those efforts may be, is also not correct.
Nduguru Irumba.
I don't think that Nduguru Garama really wants to put it on us and Madam Takali here.
I wanted to reject it outright, but I kept my peace.
You can first reject it. I have given.
I reject such a position outright. What we are saying, and I repeat, African leaders have the capacity, they have the right, and indeed the platform, to propagate the vision of peace. What we cannot agree with is that that same presence of mind, that same uniformity of purpose is never available when it comes to our purposes.
You talked one word that I loved. You said immerse themselves by soul, body and soul.
Heart, body and soul.
Yeah. Now,
is all we are saying.
It's good. Okay. It's good now. You have answered.
Listen.
Yes. So now, it is. I don't think it is true that we are really downplaying the efforts or even the capacity, the capabilities of these African leaders. No. She has brought it very well. In Ukraine, you actually want to take your entire self, you want to immerse yourself into ensuring that you actually create peace, even when you don't have, even when you know you cannot. By extension, I told you the interests of America. They are very hard to be met by anybody. But the way they are propagating their self-position, they would like really to see peace. When it comes to the African continent, they are doing what Comrade said here, just appear to be there. That's what they are doing here. I gave you an example. We have been having a problem between Uganda and the Rwanda border. I did not see the same energies, the same zeal being exerted on the Ugandan and Rwandan governments.
Are you guys having...
you have seen what is happening in Congo. Have you seen? Even the president of Congo himself, he's actually right now making it very loud and clear that, first of all, to deploy the East African standby force in Congo was a mistake. Why?
Yeah, but he invited them.
Yes, he invited them. Now he thought that the way they have gone to export peace in Ukraine and the Russia war, that spirit is the same that they would bring here. Yes, these guys have their own interests.
But are you
saying... The interests are different. So that's why he's saying, I did not think this was what I was looking at. I thought these guys are coming here to give me solutions. They're actually coming to plunder my country.
Really?
Yeah.
Yeah, because...
Now, he wants to deny.
When
can I give you a list of members who have plundered the Congo? Don't you know them?
This time around?
Stop.
This time around?
No, not now.
No.
But Shekedi is not blind to history.
Yeah, but that one, notwithstanding,
what was the mandate?
Because exactly that's what I was coming to.
The mandate of the East African force that was sent there.
The mandate, but even beyond.
They performing?
They have failed on their mandate.
No,
they have failed on their mandate.
You cannot say that.
Let me give an example.
What was their mandate?
The mandate exactly, and what have they achieved?
They went to fight M23 rebels.
Collaborating with
you wait now. You have asked me. Let me answer you. If you want, for me, I will answer you. Their first primary role was to ensure that they fight M23 rebels, isn't it?
Really?
That was not the mandate. Read the mandate.
So did they go there to sleep with them?
No, it was not.
What was the mandate of the East African
the mandate
force
was not
that
to
was
fight.
sent?
They went there to massage them.
To pacify.
What is pacification? But what is a pacification if you cannot narrow down the cause of the problem?
But actually, that is why even I think the Congolese got it wrong. The mandate was not to fight. Pacification does not, in some cases, in most cases actually, doesn't involve fighting. You can do a lot of pacification without necessarily having to fight.
MONUSCO and UNESCO have been in
now, let me tell you,
DRC.
Congo, yes.
Now, let me tell you
for how many years?
Let me tell you what could have even brought Shekedi to think twice. When UPDF left for DRC, Congo, few weeks later, General Muhoozi Kainerugaba said, those are our brothers, the M23. But these are rebels in Congo. So it means you have not gone to solve anything.
No, but you know,
who is General Muhoozi in this structure?
No. No, but that's also key. That is important.
My friend.
Because...
Was he the commander, the contingent commander from Uganda?
Exactly.
Is he the CDF?
I think the real issue, in my estimation, even before you come in, I'm thinking the real issue is whenever we find ourselves in cases where there is antagonism to the point of spilling blood, in many cases, are we applying ourselves fully and completely to this cause? That is really the question. Yes, I'm aware that in Congo right now, to pacify that region, I know Angola is there, Uganda is there, South Sudan is there, Kenya is there, and of course the DRC. But we are saying, even while you're there, does the people who are hosting you, are they, what we were saying, are they completely convinced that you're doing everything within your power
possible
to make sure, and we're not talking about necessarily military confrontation.
No.
There are many things we can do.
Be engagement, peace engagement.
For me, I am on record, to add to what you're saying, that there are many situations where we have failed to apply ourselves fully, and therefore we leave room for these other manipulators to take center stage. Now as I talk, for example, and we've spoken about this at different times, Nyamwamba has overflowed his banks. I don't know if you're aware. In Kasese.
Yes.
To add to the misery in that part of the world. I have suggested before that if we neighboring countries, why can't we ever find a common pool from which we can respond to such things. Instead of waiting for UNICEF, UNICEF, waiting for UNHCR, or whatever. Why can't we find that commonality? For me, that is my question. Why is it that it is only in military conflicts where we can find...
Actually, they still treat that occurrence in Kasese and they will do the area as accidents. Those are
No, for me, I'm asking,
those are no longer accidents.
where is that common purpose?
Those
But
are
you know
things that
what,
you expect.
people, what we need to also to look at when you consider some of these efforts. For this particular one, I think it was purely African initiative.
Okay.
The others would be sponsored by some group somewhere to help.
Lugumututa. If, for example, the overflowing of, let's bring it home. Someone talked about the Wananchi. The overflowing of the banks, I think it was last night, not long ago.
Sure. Last night.
You may find, if you're an expert, that if you go there now, the monetary needs are maybe $100,000, just now, not after 2 weeks. $100,000 is about maybe 400 million. You may find that the people who are immediately affected, that would be enough to settle them. Do you mean that all of East Africa cannot find $100,000?
Yeah, but then what I think there was a time when we discussed disasters in Africa here.
Yes.
No, that is just an example.
Yes.
I'm saying, where does the commonality, the joining of forces, why is it in these things, in these little things, we can never find it?
It is because, and which you also have put it, some of these cases, we don't even need commonalities. We can solve them as individuals. And I think that is the biggest problem that we're having. That if it's a local problem, we may not necessarily have to wait until someone comes to help us, but we still can solve that problem. The issue could be in the processes of how do we handle that problem. Of course, people have been talking about ADF for the last 20 or so, or 5 years. But the problem has, where has the problem been? Is it that the government of Uganda is not committed to solving that problem? No.
But along those lines, Ukraine has been 2 years. Where did that willpower come from? If this one is 25, where did this willpower come from?
But you also realize that the war in Ukraine is affecting all of us, more or less.
And these conflicts that don't end don't affect us?
To a greater extent, I can say
What
yes.
about the African continent?
We may, when ADF is crossing and killing people, it may not affect Libya.
No. We are talking about the Great African, these conflicts that don't end.
Yes.
They cost
So
us?
what we're agreeing here is that definitely we need not only a standby force to fight.
Actually, that one is very important. I talked about it last time. I said what we are now missing on the African continent, which is a very critical component in our peace and security. And this, we have talked about it several times, but it all boils down to heads of state, because they are the ones who finally make that kind of decision of a standby force. This is a matter that has been discussed several times in Peace and Security Directorate, and also it has also met the heads of state, not once, not twice. I believe that going forward, because it is work in progress, that it is going to be adopted. What we do have, for instance, are some of the regional bodies. You all know, for instance, that ECOWAS, for instance, has got what you would call a standby force. They have got that unity whereby, and you remember what they did. We were talking here about and how they gave him an ultimatum. They said, our brother, we have already conceded. We don't want a repeat of what has happened in other parts of the world. We are giving you time. Please, we can host you. Some leaders called him. And should you not, after this period, we are going to come in. Now, that is one. But what I want to also point out, and this is critical, is that I do recall the fact that African Union is dogged by certain problems it's true. And although some people have called it a barking dog, others have said it is no dog at all. But the truth of the matter is that there are aspects where they have scored.
Sure.
And we know the initial interest of establishing the African Union now, which earlier on was Organization of African Union. Certainly, when you look at their agenda at that time, forget about what Osejefoa, Dr. Kwame Nkrumah had envisaged, which was defeated by the Monrovia group, and the Casablanca group went out. Even then, minimally, you can see that they achieved total liberation, physical liberation of African continent from the shackles of the colonial master. Then from there, these other aspects like the political unity, which they were talking about, the economic grouping, which all of them almost seemed to agree on. That has been realized through the economic regional groupings and later on the formation of Africa Continental Free Trade Area now. But what I want also to emphasize is that what is making us probably sometimes get annoyed is that the African Union seem not to be getting the solution of Africa. Even when they know it, they seem not to be getting it correct. How come they do not address themselves to the problem quickly and effectively? I think that is our problem.
Or even zealously.
You see, but my take on this is that there are certain limitations we may not have time to go into now. Yeah. There are certain limitations that African Union faces, which probably at the moment are beyond the African Union unless we go into what I proposed. We need a total overhaul and a rethink of Africa as a continent. Another revolution if we must get to solving the African problem. Short of that, we can talk about African Union not being able to solve the agriculture question, technology question, education question, health question, peace and security question. They try in their limited capacities to do something, but they have not yet gotten it correct.
Yeah, talking of which, I was saying that we not only need now a standby force to handle the issues of Africa, we need standby forces in terms of agriculture, I've said, in terms of health, in terms of education, in terms of infrastructure, in terms of communication. Until recently,
that we've never seen.
Yeah, until recently, you have, if you are flying from here to Lagos, you'll have to fly through London or some other.
But you can see that one is reducing. Remember how it used to be?
Yeah.
Yeah. Remember getting into DRC, where even if you are flying from Nairobi, you know where you used to pass? Is it not now going away?
Yeah.
You remember we had a very big problem of intra-trade. You see how it is being sorted out through the Africa Continental Free Trade Area? Now, the economic regional groupings, how they are easing.
While even as that is being done.
So I think we are moving somewhere. Yes, in a limited capacity, limited way, but this is work in progress.
It's moving. But even as that, even with this limitation, you also look at the subscriptions of the African countries to the African Union. You find
some are defaulters, they are not paying.
Some are persistent defaulters. And then you have to wait for someone from somewhere. Maybe
others don't know whether they're Africans or Arabs.
Now
I hear for AU, this AU coming up, Algeria and Morocco want to, and I'm thinking, at World Cup you don't know whether this Morocco is African or this Morocco is up. When it is convenient, you're African. On a good day, you're an Arab.
On a rain day,
they want to do what? Algeria and Morocco want to do what?
When this man finishes, the Comoros man,
yes,
24. Either AU chairmanship.
Yes.
Morocco and Algeria.
It is rotational.
Exactly.
They are contesting.
It is not. No, they can't contest.
No, for Northern Africa, it's either Algeria or Morocco that wants. So they are presenting.
Wanting what? Because you see,
and you know, I think it's
So,
Morocco.
and if it's going to a region, it has to be a certain country.
Exactly.
So in Northern Africa, Algeria is saying I'm available, so is Morocco.
And you know, Morocco, I think, is the one that has been jumping in and out.
That's what I'm saying. On a good day, you're a Muslim. On another day,
Morocco
you're an
was
atheist.
just readmitted after she had failed.
So we are looking
So
at
those
some
kinds
of
of
the bigger
Africans.
problems of Africa. Other than looking at the bigger picture, we also have a number of issues that need to be sorted out. Much as there is a mileage, you can look at from where we have come and you say at least we have moved at least some distance in some of these areas. There is a lot of ground to be covered, but at least we have moved. But what we are saying is that that commonality, that zeal, that togetherness that Africa needs to present is the strength that we need to be able to move this continent forward. Otherwise, if we, like now, when you allow this balkanization, the Arabs say, no, we are here. Like you are saying, on a bad day, we belong here. But on a good day, we are all together. Then you have the West Africans looking at themselves as another group.
Francophone.
Exactly. Then you have the English against the French. Then you have the Christians against the Muslims. Then you have... That means that there are a number of issues that needs Africa to be addressed in this continent. But as we wind up, what should be done given all of this? Are we good to go? Are we safe? Are we moving? What do we need to be done as we wind up our submissions in Ndugu Rugaram?
In my opinion, going back to our subject of discussion today, I do record the fact that Africa certainly has her own problems. And that is not unique to Africa. Other continents equally have their own problems.
Exactly.
But when there is a problem that affects, generally speaking, people across continents, and we have got efforts from an African continent this time around, they are not the ones who are receiving, but they are taking certain peace proposals.
They are receiving
This is
from
something that we should applaud. I know, of course, there are limitations. We are not naive not to know there are limitations, but they are making a contribution. Probably I will call upon them to rhythm with my sister Takari that they should be as zealous
as possible. Ndugu Irumba.
I honestly think that Africa and the African leaders have got what it takes to even be peaceful here at home.
So that they are an example.
And then export peace across. But what's happening is the politics, not politics, politics. The pretense.
Okay.
Yeah.
Rachel.
I think Ndugu Rugarama put it well when he said our everything requires a rethink. Our approach at this time is not what we hope Africa will be about decades from now.
Thank you so much being with us on this program of Pan-African Friday, coming all your way from UBC in Kampala here. I know many people have sent in messages. They were not able to read them because we were caught up somehow by time. But next time we start, we'll start with this, some of the questions, some of the messages, and the contributions that you have sent to us. But we thank you for the time you have been with us, and we promise next week we'll be with you, and we'll begin with this that has been left for the day. We thank you all that, and we wish you the best of the weekend till we meet again next week. Thank you, and thank you being with us.
Thank you.